Okay, Ernie, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Joanne, and welcome everybody to the April 3rd, 2024 meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission. I'm sure everybody's in a great mood given the beautiful weather that we've been having for the past couple of days. I certainly know I am. And we will open tonight with a roll call. Mr. Chiocchio.
Here.
Mrs. Hofstetter.
Here.
Mr. Sylvain.
Here.
Mr. Haas.
Here.
Ms. Wallace-Smith.
Here.
And Chairman Finaldi is here. Okay, thank you. Looks like we have a full vote. We do not need to seat alternates at the present time. I will read the virtual Zoom introduction as I do at each meeting. This meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission is being held on Zoom as a virtual meeting. Even though this meeting is a virtual meeting, members of the public and interested parties continue to have the opportunity to participate in the meeting in a couple of different ways. You can participate via Zoom and see the audio and video, or you can call in by phone and participate via audio only. Please be aware that we may have to mute your microphone or telephone to avoid an echo or some other background noise. Instructions on how to participate in the meeting appear on the City of Danbury website, and all of the documents and materials that apply to the matters to be discussed during this meeting, including the agenda, are also available on the City of Danbury website. As always, if you have any questions regarding how to participate in the meeting, please contact the City of Danbury Planning and Zoning Department. As a reminder, the entire meeting will be posted on and can be seen on the City of Danbury website. We will follow the posted agenda as per standard practice. If prior to the meeting, any questions or comments on agenda items were submitted via email to the Planning and Zoning Department, those comments will be read during the appropriate portion of the meeting. Somebody's at the door. Okay.
I'll see if I can turn it off. I just have to figure out how. Sorry.
Finally, please remember that technology glitches do sometimes occur. Please be patient if that happens. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I viewed the video of the March 6th meeting, so I am up to date on all information for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chiocchio. The first item on the agenda is acceptance of the minutes of the March 6th, 2024 meeting.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Remember we talked about you have to make the motion to move the floodplain permit?
Yeah, I had that next.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
No, sorry about that.
Do acceptance of the minutes and then the next regularly scheduled meeting and then the agenda change.
Sorry.
No problem.
My bad.
Helen, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the minutes indicated that for accepting the minutes of the previous meeting, two of us seconded the motion, Mr. Sylvain and myself. So if it's okay with Mr. Sylvain, I will say that I second that, and unless he wants to do that.
I will cede to Ms. Hofstetter.
All right, so we will amend and revise the minutes to reflect the fact that it was Mr. Sylvain that made the motion and Ms. Hofstetter seconded the motion to accept the minutes of February 21, 2024. Thank you. Thank you for that correction. Anything else, commission members? Any corrections or discussion on the March 6th minutes other than the one Helen just mentioned? If not, I will entertain a motion to accept those minutes as amended.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Thank you.
Second?
Second, Mr. Sylvain. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are accepted. Let the record show our next regular meeting is scheduled for April 17th, 2024. And also, commission members, I think it was yesterday, Ally did send around a floodplain permit dated April 2nd, 2024. Came in at the last minute. Sorry, we try hard to get the agendas complete, but this snuck in at the last minute. So what I'd like to do, if you're so inclined, is to take the matter of SE 794 floodplain permit for Down Home Associates LLC and add it as item 2 under our old business for discussion and possible action agenda. I'd like to get a motion to do that if I could.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Thank you. Motion made. Second, Mr. Haas. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, so the floodplain permit SE 794 for Down Home Associates will be item 2 under old business for discussion and possible action. Thank you. Okay, we have no new public hearings this evening. We do not have any continuation of public hearings this evening. So the first item under old business for discussion and possible action, item 1, Guy and Roberta Montanari, property owners, application for special exception site plan approval for 1, petroleum distribution, section 6B2B6, and 2, petroleum storage, section 6B5B1, and 3, business office, section 6B2A4, for Casey Energy applicant in the IG 80 zone, 82 Payne Road, M12008, special exception number 797. The links were included for the planning department final staff report and also the draft resolution of approval. So with that, I believe, Ally, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so the final staff report from the planning department touched on what was discussed during the March 6th public hearing. So the rear area where the empty propane tanks will be stored must be delineated on the site plan, and also allow access to the stormwater management system for maintenance purposes. Additionally, the directional signage and markings must be shown on the site plan, and appropriate details must be added to the detail sheets. And then again, we must just have a hard copy of the full map set, which addresses all of the city comments, which includes the updated survey and some detail sheets that were revised throughout the public hearing process that we just had yet to receive. And then moving on to the draft resolution of approval. I'm going to skip over to page 4. It's the typical conditions that we'd see. And I'll point out a few that are specific to this project. Number 4, the on-site sanitary sewer pump system and tank. It mimics the on-site drainage system, which is in most of the approvals, just to ensure that it remains private, regularly maintained by the applicant, continues to function, and complies with the Danbury Bethel sewer and water agreement. Number 5, kind of a belt and suspenders approach to the final staff report, what was discussed in the public hearing. So this general condition regarding the storage of the empty propane tanks, they must be contained to the rear storage area as shown on the approved plans as revised herein. Again, number 6, just a belt and suspender approach there as well, with the preliminary spill prevention control and countermeasure plan. And then skipping down to 9, 10, 11 are the outstanding staff reports. So we have planning and zoning, construction services, and engineering there as well. Number 12 addresses Kevin's concerns that were brought up in the public hearing. And that's regarding the construction sequencing plan, and that the use, including the storage of tanks, shall not be operational until all site and drainage improvements are installed. Number 13, again, dealing with the sewer connection, full approvals and designs must be approved through DPW, City Building Department, and Bethel Public Utilities Director. Going to 14, this again addresses the comments that Helen brought up during the public hearing regarding the directional signage and markings, again, shall be installed in accordance with the approved plans as revised herein. And then 16, the commission was very vocal about their concerns about the driveway grades for fire truck access and safety. So this is just a final thing that the finished driveway and drive aisle grades must be verified in writing from an engineer or surveyor. And then said evidence shall be provided to the ZEO. So that's kind of it, if anyone has any questions.
Commission members, any questions for Ally? Bob, go ahead.
Al, I think there was just one typo. I don't know if you were able to see that. I think it was on the square footage on one of the buildings that was in the whereas clause. I think it was third whereas on number 2, the building B square footage. I think it looks like a typo.
I see that there. I'll revise that.
Okay,
It should be 2,506 square feet. I added an extra 0.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Good catch, Mr. Kiokio. Is there any other comments on the draft resolution of approval, commission members? It's very thorough, very good, Ally. Covered, I know Mr. Haas had some concerns, Ms. Hofstadter, with regard to the, the signage, and it's all there. So very, very thorough. Very good.
Thank you.
Commission members, anything else for staff?
No.
Unless there's any other discussion, I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution of approval with conditions.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve this petition with conditions and the amendment we just found as stated in the draft resolution. I'd like to approve it.
Motion to approve made by Ms. Hofstadter. Is there a second?
Second,
Second, Mr. Kiokio. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 aye,
Opposed? The draft resolution of approval with conditions is approved. Thank you. And thank you to the applicant. Very thorough presentation and good job to all. Thank you.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, we're going to move right to item 2 under old business for discussion and possible action. Again, this special exception 794 floodplain permit, Down Home Associates LLC, 7 Great Pasture Road, tax assessor lot number L16001. And again, the report from Ally was distributed yesterday. Ally, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe, I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. Everybody see that?
yes,
Yeah, we can. Yes.
Okay, so if commission recalls, we approved a storage facility at 7 Great Pasture Road for Putnam 3 Storage, which was in October of 2023 to construct the 3 buildings for self-storage. It also had additional site improvements. So the rear portion of the property, see if I can zoom in anymore here, is located in the AE flood zone. And the site plan shows that the proposed buildings are located in Zone X, which is outside the regulated flood zone. The construction limit line is at an elevation of 360 feet, and flood zone AE is at 358. Can you guys also see my cursor?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Okay, so this line here is where the AE flood zone is. And then 360 here is where that construction limit line is as well. So no work and no fill is proposed within the 100-year floodplain. But because the property is within an AE flood zone, a floodplain permit is required to verify that no work is being done below the 100-year floodplain. So it's kind of just a double check verification that they're not messing with the floodplain, not filling in the floodplain, that everything's all good. So it's just the standard conditions there for the floodplain as well. Anyone have any questions?
And Ally, we talked a little earlier about the fact that there's no work being done in the floodplain. So some commission members might wonder, well, then why are we even looking at this? No one's doing any work in the floodplain. Did you want to speak to that just a little bit?
Yes, it's because a portion of the property is located within the AE zone. We just have to verify that none of the work is impacting the floodplain in that regard.
Okay.
So.
Everybody got that?
Yep.
Great. Any questions for Ally on the floodplain permit? If there are no questions or discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the floodplain permit.
Thank you, Mr. Kyokyo. Is there a second?
No second.
Second, Ms. Hofstadter. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 The floodplain permit is approved. Thank you very much, Ally.
Thank you.
We're going to remove right to referrals. 8-3A referral. Petition of Bright Ravens IS Innovation Studios Danbury LLC to amend sections 5B2B and 5B5 of the zoning regulations, add hotel conversion as a special exception use with specific use regulations in the CA80 zone. The zoning commission public hearing for this matter will happen on April 9th of 2024. And again, the petition and the planning department staff report were previously distributed via link. Jennifer, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Jennifer Eminger. So you have my staff report dated March 28th, 2024. The city received a petition to amend sections 5B2 and 5B5 to add a hotel to apartment house, mixed use as a special exception use with specific use requirements in the CA80 district. The amendment to 5B, again, would allow for the conversion or redevelopment of an existing hotel for a multifamily apartment house use that also requires a mix of uses that are allowed in the CA80 zone. As most of you know, this is the third petition that we've received from the petitioner. This specific petition includes a requirement for special exception use. If you remember the last two, they had come in as the use being a permitted use. Based on staff recommendations, that's been changed to special exception use. There's also been minor changes with regards to a reference section in the affordable housing section. But other than that, the language mirrors what was acted upon by the Zoning Commission in November 2023. So the in this staff report also incorporates the previous staff reports prepared by Sharon Calitro, dated May 11th, 2023 and October 12th, 2023. And again, here and after, I called them reports, just for clarity. I won't go through the reasons given by the petitioner. That's in the staff report. Under general comments, permitted versus special exception use. Again, I just noted that the petitioner made that change, so this comment has been resolved. And moving on to the next comment, converting hotel rooms to apartments, unit size and property location. So we continue to question the appropriateness of allowing for the addition of permanent residential dwelling units in the CA80 zone. Again, the commissions can reasonably query if the Crown Plaza and the Hilton Garden Inn site, which are the only two sites that have been identified based off of the specific requirements that would be eligible for this type of conversion. If those two sites are acceptable locations for permanent housing, and if they meet the city's housing needs. Both are distant places from work, neighborhood amenities and transit options, and it certainly perpetuates sprawl, and it is not what we would consider smart growth. You're placing you're placing basically residential units on the outskirts where they're distant from places of work, neighborhood amenities. And again, it just perpetuates automobile dependency. With respect to the next section, this relates to the specific requirements in the petition. So section 5B5F is where you see all of those requirements. So we've gone through and specifically called those out. With respect to the minimum lot area, the requirement in the petition is a minimum lot area of 6 acres. Again, I'm going to refer you to the past reports with respect to the department's opinion on that. That has not changed. We reiterate the potential citywide impacts associated with converting hotels to mixed-use buildings in areas not previously considered for such uses. Again, right now the petition is for a CA 80. There's nothing to stop hotel owners in the CG 20 to petition to have the regulations changed to apply to the CG 20, which is our point. As there are 5 other hotels in the CA, 5 to 6 other hotels in the CA 80, the acreage restriction raises a concern that other operators might claim there's no nexus between the acreage restriction and protection of public health and welfare and safety. And that acreage could result in could be argued that it's an unfair treatment of the same use. And staff asks the commission to consider the future requests, again, for variances, text amendments that would vary that size, easily going down from 6 acres to, whatever suits that specific hotel. Again, the likelihood, once you open that door, the likelihood is high that we would potentially see those requests come in. With respect to number 3, this is the density issue. The use of previous hotel rooms as a density limitation is not an equal comparison. Transient occupancy is not a density limitation. The failure to establish a density control does not account for parking and open space as part of the mix of uses. Again, when we see density for multifamily, it accounts for the bulk requirements, setbacks, open space, parking. That's built into that density requirement to make sure you can get that type of development. In this case, there is no acreage. It just says, based off the number of hotel rooms. Again, that's not indicative of permanent resident occupancy. And the acreage requirement for additional uses is not accounted for. Typically, what we see when we have mixed use, you have to fulfill the multifamily minimum lot area, and then the mix, whether it's retail or a restaurant, would require, sometimes it's an additional 1 acre, 2 acres. That hasn't been provided for. Again, it speaks to how much land is available for all of the mixture of uses that could potentially be allowed. With respect to number 8, which is the open space, as you see in the staff report, and this has been a consistent comment in the previous staff reports, the applicants requested a minimum of 250 square feet of usable open space per dwelling unit. The issue staff has is that across the board, except in the CBD, the requirement is 500 square feet per dwelling unit. So, we've raised these concerns in the past. We continue to reiterate those concerns. While usable open space may not be necessary for transient hotel users, it's critical for permanent residents to ensure equal and fair access to open space, thereby encouraging health equity. A reduced open space requirement raises fairness and equity issues, as residents are not given the same opportunities to access open space as other multifamily and mixed-use districts. Such an approach ultimately places an unfair burden on its residents and raises questions of social justice and inequity. So with respect to, and I wanted to make this important point, recent adaptive reuse amendments to the PND and the new MIRM district demonstrate that you can certainly achieve that requirement of 500 square feet per dwelling unit. We certainly query why this type of adaptive reuse is different. We don't think it is. Everyone deserves an equal amount of open space, and it's just raises equity issues for us. And the last part of the open space section, again, and this was raised in previous staff reports, relative to the broad language of what is proposed to be included in that open space requirement. We typically say, you know, you can't have open space in the front yard. You can't have it in the side yard setbacks. You know, sidewalks are not considered open space, but the way the petition has been drafted, all of that would be considered. And for us, that's not true open space. It's not usable open space. So again, we have problems with the language in that respect. So, sorry. So moving on to the affordable housing section, which I'm on page 5, number 11. So staff raised questions previously about the language, and some of it was resolved by the change with respect to the 830G reference. However, that was the only change. And it still does not resolve the issues that we have. It's inconsistent with its own text, and it's inconsistent with the Connecticut general statutes. And I won't go through that because I think it's pretty detailed in the staff report. But with respect to, again, it's not consistent with Connecticut general statutes. It's vague. It's a general reference. It says general compliance with Title 8, Chapter 124. It's a pretty big section. It's got 4 sections. So typically when, you know, we're requiring open space, we're outlining those sections specifically. It cannot be vague. It can't be open to interpretation. It has to be clear. And this section just is not. There's also references to Section 10E of our zoning regulations. That section, again, it applies. It's the affordable housing application, which then it's specific types of developments. Assisted housing, there's 3. Assisted housing, housing development under the housing incentive option, and then a set aside under 830G. This text, the proposed text, doesn't apply to any of this. So the reference is moot. Again, it just speaks to the inconsistencies and the vagueness of that whole section. And certainly speaking with Corporation Counsel, they agree. It raises questions of how it can be interpreted. And the last part of that section, again, it references application for site plan approval, certainly not consistent with this new petition, which is a special exception process. So again, speaks to inconsistencies and vagueness. So again, we certainly recommend that that language be cleared up before, before the Zoning Commission acts on this. With respect to consistency with the POCD, again, these comments have not changed. It's been consistent. The POCD does recommend mixed-use zones, but only after careful analysis of the corridor studies. That has not been done in this case. We've asked for it in 2 previous petitions, and it still hasn't been completed. So they have their place, and we have them in the city, but you know, it's after a study is completed that we can, at that point, study the impacts of allowing permanent residential multifamily in the CA 80 zone. That should be looked at. And again, it's also not consistent with the future land use map, which calls for a corridor commercial, which again, categorized as commercial areas located along major transportation corridors and are typically served by a range of transportation options, including sidewalks and access to transit service. Excuse me, application of this new hotel conversion use will result in the introduction of dwelling units in the corridor, an action that is inconsistent with the future land use map. So, in conclusion, as I noted earlier, there's only been one substantive change, permitting it from a permitted use to a special exception use. The comments relative to the minimum lot area, density, open space, the affordable housing language, the inconsistencies in the POCD all remain outstanding issues that have been repeated through 2 petitions and have not been addressed, and they still stand. Although it could be argued that this type of housing is needed in the city, providing dense mixed-use housing without considering walkability, transportation options is simply not good planning and fails to foster sustainable and smart growth that is accessible to all residents with a focus on inclusion, equity, affordability, and quality of life. So for those reasons, staff does not support this petition.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Jen.
that was really long. I apologize. In my mind, it was shorter, but it's a
No,
lot to
Jen,
get.
it's a very thorough job. And the reason it's long is because this is a big deal. This is a big deal, folks. Make no mistake about it. This is an important referral. Sometimes we say, oh, it's only a referral. It's the zoning commission's problem. But this one is important, and it's got implications that go beyond the Crowne Plaza Hotel. And I'd like to make a couple of comments, if I may. And again, a lot of this is going to be paraphrasing things that Jennifer said, so you'll have to indulge me if I'm repeating things that were said previously. I'll make every attempt to be brief. A couple of things that Jennifer said that I think warrant repeat. This is the 3rd time we've received a 3A referral on this matter. This is the 3rd time they've gone before zoning for a text amendment. And just as a reminder, the previous 2 times as a commission, we had a negative recommendation, and the zoning commission also denied the petition. That was the outcome of the last 2. I also want to remind everybody what Jen said, which is this petition is not a site plan approval. It's not specific to the location that we refer to as the Crowne Plaza Hotel. This is a text amendment to our regulations. This is a legislative change with implications that go beyond the Crowne Plaza location. So I just wanted everybody to keep that in mind. Now, as a practical matter, given the wording in the petition, there are only 2 locations in Danbury that will apply to. What we refer to as the closed Crowne Plaza Hotel and the current operating Hilton Garden Inn. Those are the only 2 locations that this particular text amendment would apply to. Both are on the outskirts of Danbury. Both are near the New York border. Both are on a major roadway, and neither is particularly pedestrian or transit friendly. And more importantly, both are in the CA80 zone. And if you'll indulge me for just a second, I printed page 5.7 of the zoning regulations, which define the CA80 zone, and I'd like to read it. It's only one quick sentence. 5B, arterial commercial district, CA80, purpose and intent. The purpose of this district is to provide for general and heavy commercial uses in appropriate locations along major roadways of the city. Again, the purpose of this district, the CA 80 district, is to provide for general and heavy commercial uses in appropriate locations along major roadways of the city. It says nothing about residential development, nothing. So it's pretty clear the CA 80 zone was never intended to be used for permanent residential occupancy or development. The original application sought to add, the text amendment was to add hotel to apartment conversion houses mixed use as a permitted use. As Jennifer said, and this is important, the only significant change between this one and the previous ones was to require the approval to go through the special exception process. The original applications, petitions rather, asked for that hotel conversion to be a permitted use, which means you could just do it with no public hearing. This particular petition changes that. So it would come before this commission. If the zone change is granted, it comes back to us. I want to talk a little bit about unintended consequences. Jennifer touched on this. I mentioned earlier, if this petition is granted, there is only 2 locations in Danbury it applies to: the closed Crown Plaza Hotel and the operating Hilton Garden Inn. But I think Jennifer mentioned, and Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, there are 5 other hotels in a CA 80 zone in Danbury that do not meet the minimum lot area of 6 acres. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, yes, 5 to 6. I know,
You know what
the
you know what they are? You know what they are?
sure, I do. So you have the Spring Hill Suites, which is on 30 Old Ridgeberry. The Holiday Inn Express, which is 89 Mill Plain. I believe that's across from Caroluzzi's. The Marin Hotel, 42 Lake Ave, and then the Ethan Allen at 21 Lake Ave. And I was trying to get confirmation from the zoning enforcement officer if the former Super 8 hotel would qualify under that. I mention it, but I do not have confirmation that that would qualify as a hotel.
Okay, but somewhere around 5 or 6 other hotels
Correct.
are in CA 80. And there is a possibility that if business goes down or for some other reason, they want to change, they could come in for a variance. They could come in for another text amendment. They could say, where did this 6 acre minimum lot requirement come from? Why isn't it 5 or 4 or 3 or 2? This could happen. So we'd have to sort of, what's the nexus? What's the connection between the 6 acre requirement and public health, safety, and welfare? Then we'd have to be in a position to defend that. There are plenty of hotels and motels in the CG20 zone. What's to keep them from going before zoning for a text amendment and saying, hey, you allowed these in a CA 80 zone, a zone that was never intended for residential permanent development. So give us the same thing. Could happen. Again, unintended consequences. Talk a little bit about density and open space. Not issues we talk about a lot in the Planning Commission. I don't know why. Maybe because our regs currently do a pretty good job at controlling that. We don't want overcrowded buildings with no open space. We don't want to put too big of a building on too small of a piece of land. I mean, these are density issues. At the end of the day, open space issues are quality of life issues. They're social issues. You don't want to overcrowd land or overcrowd buildings. We look at a piece of land, we figure out where the building is going to fit on it, what size building. We look at the setbacks, we look at the parking, and we look at the open space. Every time. I think Jennifer mentioned every single residential multifamily zone has an open space requirement, minimum of 500, I think it's 500 square feet per unit. This doesn't. 250. Not sure where that came from. But again, I think I'll stop there. The petition falls short for me in the area of density and open space, and I think they have to go back to the drawing board and readdress that issue. You know, as Jennifer mentioned, the petition speaks of mixed use, but it doesn't say the kind of uses. In our current regs, retail, office, gyms, they all have their own parking requirements, their own minimum lot areas. This application doesn't speak to them. So, I mean, what else? I jotted down my notes here while I was designing. Yeah. And again, this is a hotel being converted to apartments. Now, look, I'm not an engineer or an architect or a developer, but I would guess that when you're designing a hotel, it's being designed for temporary occupancy. It was never intended to be designed for full-time permanent occupants. It wasn't. I mean, I guess so to that end, I guess it's a little bit okay. If hotels are a little too crowded, the rooms are a little too small, there's not really much open space because the guests come and they go. They're not living there permanently. So the density issue at a hotel, it's important, but it's not as important as it would be at a permanent residential housing development. And again, that's my uneducated opinion on building hotels versus building a residential development. I'll skip the affordable housing stuff, very complicated. I would ask you to read through that again. The wording is vague, as Jennifer pointed out. The last thing you want in any zoning regs is vague wording. Big problem. Wording that's subject to misinterpretation. You want your zoning regs to be written with wording that is as clear as possible. I don't think it is on the affordable housing section. All right, so I'll sort of end with this comment, because we don't often see the same application 3 times. The 2 previous staff reports on this matter were authored by Sharon Calitro, our former planning director, now retired. The last one was authored by Jennifer Eminger. Between Sharon and Jennifer, you're talking about 50 years of experience in planning and zoning issues. And in my opinion, they raised some very significant and legitimate concerns about what could happen if this application's petition is granted. So I would, and maybe this is a good shout out to the zoning commission as well as the planning commission. If you disagree or are dismissive of the issues and concerns raised in those 3 planning staff reports, just pause for just a second. Just pause. Read it again. Because I believe those issues are legitimate and should not be dismissed and should not be disregarded unless you feel that there's another issue that is so important that it overrides all of the concerns expressed by Jennifer and Sharon in their 3 reports. Housing for the sake of housing is bad planning. There's lots of examples of that. I won't go through them. We're not against residential apartments. We understand how important they are, but there must be some consideration given to where this housing is going. With that, I'll shut up and entertain any comments from any other commission members.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a few comments. I'll try to be very brief, and I think a few of my comments have already been stated, but I think it's important enough that they get restated. So just bear with me just for a few minutes here. So I'll start with that. This proposed new use, as was previously said, it's not consistent with the POCD future land use map. Again, as I'm going to repeat it again, the C80 zone, it's a commercial corridor zone, does not allow permanent dwelling units. In fact, apartment houses, garden apartments, fast food restaurants, they've been consistently prohibited from this zone. And I think that continues to be a prudent decision going forward. As was previously stated, this request would be only applicable to 2 parcels in all of Danbury, the other being the Hilton Garden Inn. While maybe not technically spot zoning, to me, this seems to be spot zoning. The Hilton Garden Inn just went through major renovations, so very doubtful that that site would be a candidate for conversion, making this applicant's parcel really the only candidate for this use currently. While I'm not opposed at all to hotel conversion to permanent dwelling units, any conversion, regardless of the partial size, whether or not it includes mixed use or any other type of use, should only really be considered after careful and thoughtful study of the potential citywide impacts. And I think that point was made a few times, but that really is one of the very important aspects of this. There really should be a study of throughout the whole city of conversion of hotels, if that's where we want to get some additional housing, because it could impact other areas that we don't really think of at the moment. The definitions and requirements for density, open space, parking, affordable housing, they're really not consistent with the requirements of the other zones, such as the PND, the new Murray district, and residential districts that permit housing and mixed use. It really leads me to believe that this request is specifically designed just to fit this parcel and the conversion, and that's it. The size of the units proposed, 330, I believe, 330 to 660 square feet. They're considered micro units. And again, this gets to the open space. Given the size that these units will be micro size, a large open space really would be appropriate. But the applicant really wants to diminish the size of the open space requirement and include sidewalks in its calculations. It just really doesn't make sense to me at all for this proposal. The parking requirement and calculation should be subject to the current use parking requirements and calculations of the other zones as well, based on the use. Again, this does not do that as well. Permanent high density housing should provide for easy access to places of work and have some neighbor amenities and transit options, as was previously discussed. This location, we require dependence on a car as to walking to and from this location, in my opinion, would be pretty dangerous. It would require walking up the long, curved, narrow, steep driveway. I don't know if anybody has ever been on that, but it is long, curved, narrow, and steep, and walking on that it would be pretty dangerous. And once you get there, walking on Ridgeberry Road, another could be dangerous road, and you have to walk over 84. And then where do you come to? You either have to cross or walk on Mill Plain Road, and you could take your life in your hands if you had to walk on Mill Plain Road in that area, very congested. So adding several hundred cars, making multiple trips a day from this site would only exacerbate the already strained traffic there on Mill Plain Road. So from a safety aspect, I don't think it makes sense. So, they're trying to create a new use along with reducing normal requirements for parking, hotel, open space, and density. In my mind, this is not prudent. Hotel conversions, they might be a viable option for some parcels within Danbury, but again, should only be considered after a careful and thoughtful study on the potential impacts to the multitude of zones and districts throughout Danbury as a whole. So, based on this and the previous comments there, in my opinion, a positive referral for this application, I think, is ill-advised.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chiocchio. Would anyone else like to comment on the referral?
Mr.
Helen?
Chairman, I'll just add that we've done a lot of work. I mean, particularly staff did a wonderful analysis. A lot of work went into it. It's very comprehensive. They've made the same points and recommendations for the third time here at this review. We've reviewed it. We've had previous denials. There's a lot of substantiation for taking great caution in moving forward with this. So that's my comments. And thank you to everyone who, who went through all the detail. Jennifer, thank you. Arnie, thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Would anyone else like to comment? You don't have to, but you're welcome to. Perry?
Just very briefly, I think you and Mr. Kiokio did a great job of summarizing the prudent reasons that we probably wouldn't want to, give this a positive referral. But on a more positive light, I do think we are all, looking for creative solutions for housing in this city. And I hope that the applicant, thinks about that, continues to work with the department and find a solution that would work, and a zoning change that might allow for something like that. If not here, then somewhere in the city where we could maybe fulfill some of that need. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Go
Cheryl
ahead.
Smith here. Hi. As the newbie to the group, so the hotel, from my understanding, the hotel is sitting empty currently, and it's been empty for a while, correct? Of housing / affordable housing is definitely needed in Danbury. I first moved here many, many years ago, and I would love to see my children stay here in Danbury and be able to live here, that live, work, play scenario that other cities are so carefully adapting. I did do some homework, and I read the previous petitions for a change of zoning, or in this case, an exception. And I am not opposed to hotels being changed to residential living. Also, from my understanding, there's 242 rooms right now in that hotel. For the living space, it would be converted down to 188. And again, these are micro living spaces. So when you talk about open space, I'm assuming you're speaking of the square footage of said apartments. So they would be, is that right?
No, it's not. Jen, why don't you go ahead with open space?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So right now in the multifamily districts, and including the PND district and the MIRM district, for every dwelling unit, you're required to have 500 square feet of usable open space. This doesn't apply to single family dwellings, 2 families, or 3 families. It's multifamily.
Just if I could jump in, Cheryl, that's outside the building, okay?
Correct. Thank you.
It's outside the building. It does not speak to the size of the unit. So when I was talking about open space, it had nothing to do with how small those apartments were. The open space is outside the building where they can go and enjoy themselves.
Okay. Another concern that was brought up was transportation and being able to get around. I will tell you, I live off Newtown Road right now, and I live on Shelter Walk Road off Plumtrees, which goes out to Newtown Road. I will tell you, I will not be able to walk to anywhere surrounding where I live right now. It would just be dangerous. So I don't think the fact that the units would be close to public transportation or walkability to shops and such is that much of a great concern, because coming from New York City and coming to Danbury out in the suburbs, most of the places that we live out here in Danbury, you can't just walk to a shop or a store, or you're not near public transportation, right? So I'm not able to get public transportation from here I live in Woodland Hills, and I certainly can't walk out to Newtown Road because there are no sidewalks going out to Newtown Road. So although I understand that being a concern, I don't think that's a major concern. Now that I understand about the open space, that could be addressed a little more, because, again, you need to have room. It's a quality of life issue. I would like to see more affordable housing in Danbury, and if not at this particular place, maybe someplace else. But it is sitting there vacant and empty. And, we need people to make economies grow, right? We're not looking for overcrowdedness. We're not looking to become New York or or, dare I say, Waterbury or Bridgeport. But I do think we do have some kind of obligation to allow some type of housing here in Danbury. And I understand that the CA 80 is all commercial, and it's been commercial, and it is zoned for commercial. But sometimes in order to move forward, you have to make some changes. And, to say this would open up the floodgates for everybody who wants to convert a hotel into an apartment building, everything will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. Just because this is approved or allowed to happen doesn't mean it's going to be okay for it. We're not opening the gates for everybody to say, okay, we want to do this too, and why can't we do it as well? So I think everything should be and would be addressed on a case-by-case basis.
No, thank you, Cheryl. Those are very valid points, very well stated. And I agree that a vacant building is not a sign of a healthy local economy. You want as few vacant buildings as possible. I'm in complete agreement with that. I'm reminded of, I can't remember what years it were, but when I was growing up, you get on I-84, exit 6, down at the bottom, there was a sign on this building that said Richard Jowdy Real Estate, I think it was. And that building sat vacant forever. And so that was your greeting to Danbury, exit 6, Richard Jowdy Real Estate. It's a vacant building, and there was, the parking lot was in disrepair, and it was really kind of a terrible way, first thing to see when you get off the highway for years. And then I'll be damned, but Starbucks came along, and they reconfigured that whole exit. They reconfigured the traffic lights. They put it, and it actually isn't so bad now. So no, I'm with you on that one. I agree. I did want to throw in that in the area of affordable housing, I shouldn't say affordable housing, I should say, residential dwellings that might be a little bit below the current market for price. We did approve a lot of apartments for the mall, in the old Lord and Taylor. We did approve many apartments for the Summit building, the old Union Carbide building, which incidentally I'm sitting in right now. Jennifer, how many permits do we have out there? Do you have any idea? And forgive me if I'm putting you on the spot for apartments.
Oh, geez. That I do not have an answer for. I know the Summit is currently under construction for the apartments. I think there's over 300 approved for the Summit. We're seeing smaller developments happening, but really the big one is the Summit. The Reserve is building, Toll Brothers is continuing to build condominiums out there, which we would consider, townhouse style developments. But I don't have a number off the top of my head.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay.
My point to Cheryl was that we are looking for creative ways, putting them in the mall, putting them in the Summit, this building I'm sitting in right now. I mean, refashioning a great big giant old office building that I'm sitting in right now to get some residential apartments in here. Keeping our mall vibrant, the #1 taxpayer in the city of Danbury. The last thing we want is for that place to have problems. So we try to be forward thinking, but again, you just can't do it everywhere. You have to look at each one, like you said. So, but very valid points, and I thank you for making them. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and I know this came up during the last petition during the zoning commission public hearing, and I don't think it was discussed during the planning commission referral, as it hadn't happened yet, but the applicant has come into the permit center to convert those hotel rooms into extended stay hotel, and he has permits, and he's actually doing construction out there. So yes, it has been vacant, but he's got active permits right now to convert those to extended stay. I just wanted the commission to be aware of that.
Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your very thoughtful comments and for a very thorough presentation, Jennifer. We have an A3A referral before us, so we have to take action on it. The zoning commission meeting is very soon. So commission members, again, you can make a positive or negative recommendation for this referral. And then, you could state the reasons or include the reasons from the previous one, which is here in front of you. I think Jennifer distributed the previous memo from me to Theodore Haddad, the chairman of the zoning commission, with the reasons. But I will need someone to make a motion, either positive or negative.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll make a motion for a negative referral based on all the comments here tonight, including Jennifer's comments and Jennifer's staff report and Sharon's staff report from October or May of last year.
Thank you, Mr. Kiokio. A motion has been made for a negative referral. Is there a second to his motion? Second
All
by
right, I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay. So there is a motion for a negative referral made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on this referral? Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. A yes is for a negative referral. A no is not for a negative referral. This is a little tricky when it gets to Robert's Rules of Order. So again, one more time, a yes is for a negative referral. A no is not for a negative referral. A little weird, but that's how it goes. Okay, with that said, Mr. Kiokio,
Yes.
Ms. Hofstadter,
Yes,
Mr. Sylvain,
Yes.
Mr. Haas,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Okay, so it is and Cheryl, I didn't seat you because nobody missed the meeting, so I appreciate you being here. Didn't need to seat alternates for this particular meeting. Okay, a motion for a negative referral was made and seconded, and the vote is 5-0. So this matter gets a negative recommendation from planning. Okay, I think that where's my agenda? Oh, boy, here we go. There's one under new business, which you can take a look at. Nothing under correspondence, nothing under old matters for discussion and possible action, a couple of full reference only things that you can look at your leisure. Unless there's anything else, commission members, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Motion
Second.
made, seconded, Mr. Sylvain.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good night, good
Thank you,
work.
everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Aye.